Well, welcome. And today we have a special guest, Amy Rawls, and my name is Dr. Trevor Miller. I have 30 years of functional medicine, chiropractic training. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, as well as certified functional medicine provider. This is my wife, Jessica Miller. And I'll let you say your accolades because I always get the amount of time you were on the floor wrong.
Oh, I have 17 years of experience. I'm a registered nurse. Um, Lots of little certifications, but that's about it.
And you have a passion for
I
hormones.
just have a passion for people and health.
And with us is Amy Rawls. She has a master's. She's a registered dietitian, a licensed dietitian. She has a lot of letters behind her name. Functional medicine, nutrition specialist, a certified gastrointestinal nutritionist, and is a registered dietitian who uses an integrated and functional medicine approach that focuses on the root cause. You always hear us talk about getting to the root cause because if you don't get to the root cause, you're just applying a Band-Aid and you're going to stay on whatever pills, whatever potions. You really can't live a full life if you're dependent on other things. Amy has been in practice since 2010 and completed her master's degree with a dietetic residency through Lamar University. Amy has gone on to earn additional certifications as a functional medicine nutritionist and certified gastrointestinal nutritionist and certified enzyme therapist. That's the cool one because that's a piece that we have kind of missed. And Amy has really helped you.
The enzymes are amazing.
And has helped me and has helped our patients. And so we're very thankful for what she has brought to the table. And she is currently the Director of Clinical Services and Education for Transformation Enzymes Corporation, where she is responsible for all the transformation education and technical support services. She's my crutch. She says I have a representative, but I always text her.
That's okay. I don't mind it.
And she has spoken and hosted various events, seminars, conferences around the U.S. and international on topics related to nutrition and enzyme application. Her passion for using nutrients as food as a foundation of treatment protocols combined with enzyme therapy is supported by up-to-the-date scientific research for functional and integrative approach to healing. I actually recently, or what we see with all of it's backed by science. And now everybody has to look at all the stuff in mainstream medicine that has choked out these types of therapies for so long with what is being proven to be shoddy science. I see that and I hear Dr. thus and such espousing, oh, you can eat anything you want. And it's just not true. So, Amy, how did you get into this space? What brought you to this?
Yeah. So, as a dietitian, the whole reason I went into dietetics is I had my own personal issues with food, did the whole eating disorder thing. So that's where my passion for nutrition came. And at the time I was going to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Dietetics and being a registered dietitian was kind of the gold standard. It still is the gold standard. And we didn't have all these different nutrition certifications that are around now. At the time, this was back in 2003. So, there wasn't as much availability. So this was my best way to really get my foot into the nutrition field. And so that's what I did. And as a dietitian at that time, especially, it's changing now, thankfully, but we are trained very allopathically. So like what most doctors are. So we're not really, yes, we deal with food, but it was very just base level. I mean, using the standard food guide pyramid, things like that. And I always felt like it didn't really make complete sense. And I felt like it just wasn't really digging into a lot of the issues. It especially hit me in my to be a dietitian, you have to do a 1-year internship. And in one of my diabetic rotations that I was doing, I was just like, why are we giving these people so many carbohydrates? You're chasing the carb load with insulin when it should be the opposite. So right then that kind of bothered me. So anyway, long story short, I ended up getting into weight management was always my passion, and that's where I always wanted to be. So I ended up working at a bariatric center, and I was handling their surgical and non-surgical weight loss program. I was working for a very unfriendly gentleman and I was under a lot of stress. I was planning a wedding. I was working out like crazy. I was starting to, at this point, learn about functional medicine and getting into like micronutrient testing, which is where you can actually look at the cellular health and within the cell see where the malnutrition is. Because at the end of the day, what I love about my field is we're involved in every single disease process because nutrition is everything. It sets your footprint for so much. And for all these different systems of the body to work, nutrition has to be on point. And so in that, I was having a lot of my own health issues. I was not sleeping. My hair was falling out. My thyroid had tanked. I was getting skin breakouts, which never happened. I've never had an issue with acne, luckily. And it was at that point that my SpectraCell rep actually said, have you ever tried enzymes? Because at the time, my approach was, while I thought I was being functional and getting to the root, I was still thinking allopathically. Oh, I had a B vitamin deficiency. Let me give myself a B vitamin. Oh, I'm short in EFAs, or I have, low glutathione. Let me just directly give that. That philosophy and that way of doing things is very linear and still not getting to the root cause. Because if I'm eating foods that are rich in B vitamins, why would I be deficient? If I'm, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
That's what also kind of made me think that as well. And I'm like, how am I any different? I'm just recommending 10 different vitamin and mineral supplements versus these people being on 10 different medications. So that was another kind of red flag that was flagging for me. Well, at this time, my rep said, maybe you should reach out to a little company called Transformation Enzyme. Because my gut issues and things like that, nothing was really getting better. I was seeing a little bit of improvement. I was doing probiotics. I was doing some GI lining support, but I was still having issues with gas and bloat, and my skin was not really doing any better. Sleep was still off. It was just for the amount of money I was spending on products and the time I was doing it, I was not getting the results I wanted. So anyway, I get connected with Transformation Enzyme Corporation. I call them. They say, hey, we're going to send you our foundation kit, which now we call it our Healthy Gut Program. And they sent it to me. And within 3 days, I had almost a complete 180. The gas had disappeared pretty much automatically. My constipation was better. My skin within 2 weeks had started to clear up. My thyroid did start to improve, and now my thyroid's better regulated. But anyway, things started to improve way more significantly when I put the enzymes into place. And then I thought, maybe I should do this with everybody I see. And at the time, I didn't know a lot about enzymes because, believe it or not, in my 6 years, because I have a master's degree in dietetics, in my 6 years of doing all my training, we never talked about enzymes. We talked about the metabolic processes and things like that, but we never talked about the supplementation aspect and how to use them for support. I think now that's actually something that they discuss more, but in my curriculum, that was not something we did because, again, we're really, at that time, my program was more aimed at, hospitalist and being more on the allopathic side of things. So at that point I was sold, and then I started using them with every client that I would see. And same thing, they would call me. A lot of times I would start them with a sample, or they would order like our little starter kit, and they would call me back and say, I don't know what these are, get me more, right? They were feeling so much better. And that really shifted my entire practice and my entire approach and how I address disease and just imbalances in my clients, was starting with the gut, because we know that all disease begins in the gut, and that means all health begins in the gut. So when you're working on just nutrient deficiencies or mineral deficiencies or hormone replacement, you're not getting to the root cause, because the gut is what is driving all of those different things to be, all of those different systems, because hormones are part of your endocrine system, acne, that's skin system, thyroid, same thing, endocrine system. And those are like branches to a tree. And the trunk of that tree is the gut. And so it just makes sense if you're not going to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. I don't know what type of hardware stores you guys have there, but
Same
that's
thing.
a lot of our garden centers. And I'm not going to go there and pick out a tomato plant that has a stem that's broken, because guess what? Those leaves aren't going to get the nutrients from the soil to grow fruit. And the same thing, I love that analogy because it just makes so much sense for the body as well. So that's my story on how I got here.
Well, just from a nursing aspect, the diabetes, that thing hits so on point, because every nurse that knows anything about basic nutrition could never understand while working in a facility that they would get chocolate cake, corn, carrots, bread, and everything that everybody else got, and then their little pink packet on the side. And we were always chasing it. So,
yep.
Totally.
Because you got to keep them on that insulin.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Gotta keep them on. And I mean, that's why I don't even really attend a lot of some of the conferences that certain associations have, because they're heavily sponsored and influenced by big pharma.
Well, and we know that, as your bariatric background, they lose weight, they come off of the insulin, they come off of the metformins, they come off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not because they lost weight. It's because they're super restrictive on the diet, right? And
yes, and the hormonal shifts with the ghrelin and the leptin from the surgery are also big factors, and the GLP-1 impact that it has. So that's a big part of it as well. But definitely the weight loss. I mean, just like with insulin, that's what I would explain to people. Think of it as the more abdominal fat you have, you're building that wall higher and higher for the insulin to have to jump over. And so when you don't have as much adipose, fat like that, the insulin can actually transfer and get to where it needs to go much more efficiently. And then the glucose uptake improves as well. So, but yes.
Yeah, insulin resistance sucks.
Yeah, it definitely is not fun to deal with.
So I put up the all diseases begin in the gut slide, and I believe you covered that very well. And from like the IFM standpoint, this is where we look as functional medicine doctors. And then we actually carry a machine that's called the Heidelberg, and we will measure people's hydrochloric acid. And it is pretty wild to watch what happens to people and just how disordered the gut is. It's pretty crazy. So you have a very interesting slide here that you like to talk about. Why don't you explain this to us and to our viewers?
Sure. So I love this graphic. It's what we call the ripple effect of disease, of digestion and disease. Again, just further reiterating how the gut is connected to all the systems of the body. So this is a ripple. Another image analogy I like to use, like I had mentioned, is a tree, right? So think of like if you're planting a garden, you're going to have the first thing you have to do to grow a good garden. Me and Jessica have talked about this because we're, that's our thing is gardening, is good soil. And so your soil represents, your lifestyle. It's your movement, it's your water, it's your stress management, it's your nutrition, it's your spirituality, right? All of those things are key. And I'm saying all this because, you can take whatever supplement you want. If the soil is not healthy, supplements will not be near as effective, right? There is no magic pill for anything, right? All of those things have to be in place. This is why we are still in the situation we are, because people want a magic pill and there isn't. To maintain health, all of it takes work, right? But it really isn't work once you start doing it. I think we just have, it made it seem like it's hard work, but it's really not. It's actually much harder to be unhealthy than it is to be healthy. It's much harder, right? So that being said, the ripple effect is kind of illustrating that as well. When we, let's say, I said nutrition is a big part of that soil. When you eat, right, what is expected is you eat your food, your body digests it, and we expect that we get all of that nutrition based on what we're eating. The whole saying, you are what you eat. But that is not true. You are not what you eat. You are what you digest, assimilate, and fail to eliminate. Because when you're constipated, you're also not getting rid of toxicity, right? You detox one of four ways: your lungs, your kidneys, your colon, or your skin. So if you're eating daily and not eliminating daily, that means toxicity is building up. This is why with skin, a lot of times almost anybody with skin that I deal with, they're also constipated. It's not coming out their colon. So guess where it's going to go? It's going to come out their skin. So what the ripple effect is explaining is just that digestion is at the core of all of that, because think of the soil. Nutrition is your soil, right? And you're eating. So let's say you guys have people that you're working with and you're trying to get their iron up. So you're telling them to eat more meat, fish, poultry, those types of things, right? Or maybe it's B vitamins or B12. So you're pushing, your green veggies for folic acid, etc. People are eating that and we're prescribing that because there's a lot of practitioners that just use food, and that's great. That's a great approach. But the truth of the matter is it's not enough anymore. We are inundated with so much toxicity and so much stress that it's not enough. We have to support the body with more, because not only do we have all of these other factors that can suppress digestion and influence our ability to utilize nutrients in food, stress is a big one that completely shuts down digestion. And when you don't digest, what happens is the carbohydrates that you're eating ferment, the proteins putrefy, and the fat turns rancid. What this does is it increases the toxic burden in your body. And when we have uncontrolled toxicity, right? Because I do a whole webinar on this one. People say, well, we detox. Detox is one of the most expensive nutritional processes your body has. It has to go through 2 phases and it requires a ton of nutrition. And I hate to break it to you guys, but the standard American diet ain't doing its job at giving the body the nutrients it needs to detoxify properly. So I would be willing to bet majority of the population is not detoxing adequately on a daily basis. And when we have built up toxicity, that creates the big no-no, inflammation, which is at the root of every single disease you see on that ripple effect, right? Inflammation is at the root cause of almost every disease that we see, because it creates imbalance. It dirties the terrain. It puts everything out of whack. Nothing can work in harmony and symphony anymore. And when that goes ignored long enough, because you're constipated, so your doctor says that's normal, that you only go every few days, or just take a Miralax, right? The Miralax isn't getting to the root. So you might be eliminating a little bit better, but that toxicity is still bubbling. And when that goes, or we get headaches a lot, right? Oh, I get frequent headaches because maybe I have Hashimoto's and I'm ignoring it and I keep eating gluten. Guess what? You're silencing your body telling you, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. The inflammation's blinking. You do it long enough, you keep moving further along in the disease process and you get imbalance, right? And so for those that truly want to get to the root of any disease, whether it is hormonal dysfunction, whether it is, allergies, whether it is, eye health issues, muscle issues, cancer, right? I'll say the C word, even that. At the root of all of these diseases, nutrition is key. And what you do with that nutrition is the next step. So that's where digestion is going to come in to prevent you creating more toxicity, right? And to stay ahead of that waste, right? And then, systemic enzymes like proteolytics are really good at hitting that toxicity and inflammation ripple as well. And that's why, enzyme therapy is a great, not only effective approach at addressing pretty much any disease that's going to come across your doorway, but they also simplify the entire process. So hopefully that makes sense.
And just to explain it to patients and to our listeners here, just to put a finer point on it, the migrating motor complex in the body goes through waves, but it happens multiple times a day, every day. That's why you should be having a bowel movement. And if you are not, there is a problem. And you've got to figure out what that problem is. Whether it's not enough fiber, water, enough just movement. Yes, whatever the case may be, if you're depending on coffee to get you going in the morning, there's probably an issue. And a difference between allopathic and functional medicine, or what we call root cause medicine, is enzymes A are not artificial. B, your body produces enzymes, and what we are doing with enzymes is we are enhancing your body's processes. The problem, it's not a problem. The way medications work, almost every medication works on inhibition. It stops something. And if you've ever played when I was a kid, eons ago, we would play in the streets during rainstorms, and we would build rocks, and we would build a dam in the gutters and watch what happens. And what happens is for a short period of time, i.e., when you start taking the medication, it does its job. The water is held, the symptom is gone. And then eventually over time, what happens? Well, you start to see leaks, and the water starts to get around the rocks, and it starts to move around because it's going to flow. And that's where we start to get into the pill parade, or they start to increase your doses of whatever. And this is a different approach. This is coming in and saying, hey, these rocks aren't supposed to be here. Let's remove them. Let's enhance the enzymatic process, because if your body is overburdened by conventionally grown foods, glyphosate, and all of that stuff, well, your body's not encountering natural toxins at this point in time. Now we are taking man-made toxins and compounding the problem. And so the body needs a little help. And that's exactly what we're doing with enzymatic therapy. That's what we do when, we were talking earlier, if you're 18, 19, 20, early 30s, your body still has a lot of resiliency. And making small changes really impacts your health at that time. But if you're waiting until you're 40, 50, 60, that's a whole nother issue, because you've had a lot more time, a lot more what they call area under the curve. So more damage has been done. So this is actually about your product called the Thrive in 63. Would you like to go over that and explain that? And I would like to hear, I always love the patient stories, because
yeah, absolutely.
so empowering to give people hope that, oh, hey, I don't have to live this way. So go ahead and introduce, your what transformation enzyme does with Thrive in 63.
Yeah, sure. And I think for everybody, I want to make sure they understand what enzymes are, because it's a scary word to some. They have never heard of it. So enzymes, they're nothing more than energy-rich proteins that occur naturally in all living things, right? They are critical for life. We cannot live without them. Think of them as like the workers that would put your house together. You can buy all the lumber, all the nails, all the hammers you want, but I'm not a contractor. I don't know how to build a house. So if I have all those materials, this represents your vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, right? But if there's no workers to do anything with the materials I just bought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it's the same thing. Without enzymes, all of those materials that you're taking, all these different vitamins, minerals, nutrients, they're useless without enzymes, right? So they're literally necessary for every reaction that occurs in your body. Every organ, every tissue, plus 100 trillion cells in your body depend on enzymes, right? And the enzymes, they're coenzymes for vitamins and minerals in order to be absorbed and utilized. So they're really critical to support the body nutritionally as well as systemically, meaning via the blood. And so Dr. Miller has asked about our Thrive in 63 program, which is a complete lifestyle program that we created to help restore the body from the inside out. So basically, it was designed to do three things: remove, repair, and restore. Okay, so the program is divided into three phases. The first phase is where we begin with removing things in a gentler way. And the way we go about doing it is through enzyme therapy. The program includes a digestive. The reason a digestive is there is because, back to that ripple effect, right? We want to make sure that the foods that we're providing in this program, because the program does contain a complete diet plan. It is a 9-week program that comes in 3 separate booklets. There's phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. In phase 1, you will get 3 weeks worth of anti-inflammatory paleo style recipes, as well as a grocery list for each of those recipes, because, people that aren't familiar with how to shop, how to cook those things, basically, in some of the feedback we had gotten early on is they were overbuying at the grocery store, had a lot of leftovers. So we made grocery lists to help simplify that process. It has all of the recipes and the meal plan. We also have in the program tips on where to shop, what to look for, what to avoid. We have lifestyle recommendations in there as well, because the nutrition piece is key. If you're working with any practitioner and they're only giving you a supplement and not hitting nutrition heavy with you, you need to get away, because that's not the right approach. Nutrition is always first, because without the right nutrition, like I've said already, all of those different things that your cells of all these other systems are going to need to function well, it's useless. So the enzymes are great, but we want to make sure that there's proper nutrition there so that we're delivering the different vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that the different systems of the body need to function. So the Thriving 63 has that covered. And what's great about it is it's also teaching you how to live. I think that's a big problem with a lot of programs out there, is they're quick, they're short, and it's not teaching lifestyle. It's not teaching you how to shop. It's not teaching you how to cook. So when the program's over, you still don't know what to do. And what ends up happening with a lot of people is they gain everything back, or they go back to their state of not being well, because they never got the basics, right? And so that was what was really important to me with this program, was making sure that it taught those valuable lifestyle things, because that was going to lead to long-term success. And this program delivers that. And what's great about it is the recipes are easy. They're good. A lot of people think that eating healthy has to be bland and gross. Guess what? I'm Cajun. I'm from Louisiana. So these recipes are full of spice and flavorings and different things. And what's nice too is you can rotate out. The program comes with an approved food list. So, and that's stuff that Jessica and Dr. Miller I'm sure can definitely go over with you guys. So let's say you had a food sensitivity, which if you have a food sensitivity, you got gut issues. So you're coming to the right place by using that, or an allergy, and there's something in the program that calls for a food you can't have, you can use that approved food list to easily swap things out. What is also nice about the program is I created it for the busy individual. So if you are on the road a lot, you can easily do food exchanges that way. If you're not big on cooking, you can definitely make some substitutions, and there's healthy meal programs out there. But I will say, it really will take some commitment on your end on really focusing on learning how to cook for yourself and create meals. So that's like the first piece of the program, because remember I said the soil, right? And so we have to address nutrition first. But the next step is, what are we doing with that nutrition, right? And so that's why the Thriving 63 program supplements contain a digestive enzyme that you would take before each meal to make sure that you are properly utilizing and breaking down all the different components of the meals that you're eating. And you might be thinking, well, Dr. Miller said we make enzymes. You do, right? But the truth of the matter is, we no longer make enough to keep up with the toxicity that we are exposed to, with the standard American diet, with the stress that we're under. Not to mention, as you age, your enzyme propensity declines. Once you hit about age 30, you start to lose about 10% of your enzyme output every 10 years or so. This is why a lot of elderly people typically aren't big fans of, big steaks. They have trouble with protein a lot of the time. It gives them digestive issues because they don't make enough protease anymore. So that's, just another reason. And supplementing with digestive enzymes does not suppress your pancreas, which is what makes your digestive enzymes endogenously. It does not suppress the output. It actually increases pancreatic output because it helps to take the burden off of the pancreas. So your pancreas actually becomes healthier when you are utilizing digestive enzymes because of it taking that burden off. So that's the first part of the supplement protocol that's there. That's utilizing those nutrients. The second piece is there is a proteolytic enzyme we use protease or Purezyme. So what proteolytic enzymes do, if you remember that ripple effect, the ring that is the orange and red rings, the toxicity and inflammation, proteolytic enzymes taken away from food is what we call systemic, right? Because we want them working in the blood. And what they are able to do is they can actually work outside of digestion and travel to any system of the body to help with inflammatory control, to modulate detoxification, to modulate the immune system. Notice I'm saying modulate. Remember, Dr. Miller said that medications turn things off. What's beautiful about enzymes is they are modulators, meaning they work with the ebbs and flows of the body, suppressing inflammation when it needs to be and helping to keep it elevated when it needs to be, because we do need inflammation. That's how you heal, right? But the problem is when it's uncontrolled. So you never want to shut inflammation off, which unfortunately a lot of these pharmaceutical medications do. And so what's great about proteolytics is they have the same mechanistic actions in your body as many of the pain relief medications, inflammatory medications that you can buy at the pharmacy, except they don't have any of the same side effects and they don't shut down inflammation, they modulate it. They also are great for blood rheology, which means your blood flow. I like to think of the digestive enzymes as cracking the egg open, right, to release the nutrients. But the proteolytics support the nutrient highway via the blood. So they are making sure that the blood is flowing and moving so that these different nutrients can be transferred where they need to go. And that also helps to keep the blood alkaline. Many people walking around have acidic blood because they're out of balance. And when our blood is acidic and stagnant, that's a breeding ground for parasites, for dysregulated cells, the C cells, right? The big C word, because they can hide from the immune system much easier when the blood isn't moving. And so proteolytics also help with that. So you're getting so many different benefits just from one product versus having to take 5 different things to achieve that same outcome. The program also includes a daily probiotic, because if you remember, I said you're what you digest, assimilate, and fail to eliminate. And proper elimination, meaning daily bowel movements, is key. Not to mention probiotics are a big part of supporting your health because that's your immune footprint, the microbiome, right? So by taking a daily probiotic, it helps to re-inoculate the gut with good bacteria, right? So that we can stay in balance and keep our immune system healthy and have all the different, the brain gut connection working really nicely. And then the last piece of the Thrive in 63 program is a product that we use called Gastro or Gastrozyme. And those products are designed to support the GI lining. Many people that are dealing with some of the diseases that you see on the screen right now are suffering from intestinal permeability or leaky gut. You might have heard that term before. And leaky gut can be a really big problem because the digestive system is a closed system for a reason. It's very acidic in your stomach because when we eat, things that come in with our food, bacteria, pathogens, viruses, and that acidic environment kills a lot of that off, right?
Yeah, first line of defense.
It's our first line of defense, right? And so this is why I don't like PPIs or antacids, because they're suppressing that acid, allowing for more bad things to brew in the stomach and actually make it further along. And that's if you have a leaky gut, and if those things are able to survive because the acid's not at the right pH. Like I said, it's a closed system. And when you have leaky gut, it separates. And so those pathogens are able to seep out of the digestive system and transfer into your blood. And then they get transferred to any part of your body. Right. And so, again, when someone has a skin issue, I almost always know that's related to intestinal permeability because that toxicity has left the digestive system and now it's traveling to the skin system. Right. And so the program, while we market it as a leaky gut program, it is a great program for literally anything you see because it covers key pieces of addressing root cause disease, nutrition, and digestive wellness and microbiome health. So that's kind of is that a decent synopsis of the program?
Uh-huh. I hope when we are here talking to patients, I've heard Jess say this too. When we tell people about the proteolytics, we explain them like Pac-Man. They just go out and get rid of all the old bad stuff. And I love that stuff because that has helped me with lots of issues from weightlifting, the DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. When I jacked up, broke my neck, I actually lived on the protease for quite a while. So,
Yes.
what would you say? What should a patient expect? Let's say you have a diabetic patient coming in, and I'm going to give you three types of patients that we see commonly in Indiana. So you have a diabetic patient coming in. What can they expect, and what has been your experience with using the Thrive in 63 with those patients?
Right. So the Thrive in 63 is great for diabetics because it is a balanced, it's based on a plate method where we balance it out to where you're getting anywhere from a quarter to a half a cup of carbohydrate at a meal, which is what a diabetic should be getting, not 3 servings of carbohydrate, just one. It has a balance. It has, on each meal plan, I give ranges for portions. So you're getting 4 to 6 ounces of protein, and then half the plate is going to be full of non-starchy vegetables that are going to be high in fiber. They're very filling foods, low in calorie, right? And then we also always have fat there. When it comes to diabetes, you always want to make sure that your diet is high in protein and fat, right? And the reason for that is because your body breaks down macronutrients or carbs, fats, and proteins differently. Carbohydrates are broken down very quickly, like this, right? Very fast. And what that does is it stimulates or it signals the body to release insulin, okay? Because the insulin's responding to the glucose that just came into the bloodstream. But what the problem with that is when insulin responds by also spiking, when insulin is elevated, you cannot burn body fat, period, right? Insulin has to be low in order for the body to burn fat. And when someone has diabetes, if they're insulin resistant, the insulin's staying elevated, but it's not getting into the cell. So the glucose is staying elevated, so they never drop. And then you feel hungry more often because the cells aren't getting the glucose. It's not going in. So your brain's signaling, I'm still hungry, but there's still tons of glucose in the system. You just don't know that. And so when you have, with Thrive in 63, it's a diet, like I said, that's high in protein and high in fat. And it's not a low carb diet, but it's a balanced carb diet using more complex carbohydrates that have things like fiber in them and the different, phytonutrients that we need versus your simple carbohydrates that are nutrient void and really cause those blood sugar spikes. Well, things like fiber takes longer to break down. So fiber helps to slow a blood sugar spike, right? That's why with diabetics, a lot of times they'll tell them they can deduct the fiber from the carb content. I don't agree with that, but still fiber's still a carb, right? But it is broken down slower. But protein and fat is really key when it comes to any diabetic program because the body breaks those down much slower. It breaks it down more like this. So you stay fuller longer because it's taking much longer to break down, and it doesn't cause a drastic spike in insulin, right? Which is going to prevent weight loss and actually mess with your glucose numbers more significantly. And what the program was, the way I designed it is you will be in a caloric deficit. So if you're a diabetic needing to lose weight, you're going to be in a deficit on this diet because thermodynamics do play a role, but you're never going to know you're in a deficit because you're eating foods that have nutrients and the right macro and micronutrient profile. So the body's not hungry, right? Because we're getting glucose and insulin control, and we're also getting the vitamins and minerals that we need to also feel satiated and satisfied to help regulate those, hunger hormones that we have. And the portion controls there. I have tons of diabetics that just follow this, and then you don't have to mess with all the carb exchanges and all the math. It's done really nicely for you, and you shouldn't have a glucose drop even if you're on insulin because there's so much protein, fat, and fiber in this plan. So it should be very balanced. But yeah, they might have to adjust insulin if their carb exchange is like 150, which is what most hospitals will allow, which is insane. People without diabetes shouldn't even have that much carbohydrate. So the fact that we're saying that's the standard, a carb exchange for a diabetic is complete insanity. But yeah, so it definitely won't do that. And you're, like I said, it's not low carb because non-starchy vegetables like broccoli and salad and cucumber and, radishes, those all have carbs, but they're complex carbs and they're also full of nutrients, which is why you could eat 500 calories of Oreos, right? Like a sleeve of an Oreo, which I could easily take down, 500 calories, right? Versus a meal that has what's going to keep you fuller longer? A whole sleeve of Oreos that's 500 calories, or a plate that's 500 calories that has a steak, a 4-ounce steak, a big salad, and half of a baked potato. What's going to fill you up and what's going to keep you fuller longer? Same amount of calories are there.
Yeah.
Because it's not about just the energy. It's about the macronutrient profile and the micronutrient profiles that are there. And this program does all that for you, especially if you're someone that it's a great program, especially for someone that might be new to learning how to eat healthier or how to shop, how to cook. Great program for really teaching you how to do that.
And I know there's a difference between somebody who's newly diabetic and somebody who's been a diabetic for 10 years. How often on the newly diabetics do you see them eliminating their medications?
Pretty regularly. I've gotten a lot off of insulin.
Yeah, we see
yeah.
that a lot too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about your 10-year-olds? We generally see a reduction in meds, but it's pretty hard to get them all the way off that we've seen so far.
I have even gotten, I have one of my best friend's dad. I have him off of his insulin. He's been a diabetic for 40 years. He was, type 2. But, yes, sometimes I would say more likely the longer you've had the disease, it is harder. But you can definitely get them on a much lower dose, which will help their metabolic health and honestly their lifespan.
Oh, yeah.
And probably their pocketbook, because insulin is not cheap.
Well, and usually the ones that we can't get off their insulins are the ones that are woodworkers, and they're working in like a toxic environment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always burdening themselves, and they are more aware and mindful of how they're doing their hobbies, but they still do them.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody, we see skin issues clear up all the time. What has been your experience, and what do the patients see?
With using Thriving 63?
Yeah.
Oh man, they love it. So we actually have a whole company right now. It's actually Sunshine Botanicals, which is a natural skincare line. They're great. You guys should check them out. But their whole company is doing our Thriving 63 right now. And they're actually incorporating the program into their esthetician course and approach, because again, the skin has to heal from within. So, when definitely topical can be effective, but if you're dealing with a skin issue, you definitely have to deal with the gut and just the internal inflammation that's creating those skin eruptions and imbalances. And so what we've seen, we have a whole Thriving 63 for kids as well. I see eczema clear up, psoriasis clear up, acne 100%. I have a teenager right now that's doing Thrive, and her acne is pretty much gone. We have a personal trainer testimony. Her acne cleared up because, and if they were just to do the enzymes, they probably would have cleared too, but not probably as quickly or kept it off, because, it's like running up a downhill escalator. If you're taking products, but still eating all the bad food that's creating the inflammation, you're kind of just, spinning your wheels. So when the nutrition is on point, and then the body is able to utilize the nutrition, amazing things can happen if you just give the body the resources it needs to get back into balance. So definitely see a lot of skin improvements. I'm trying to think of another really good one.
Well, I'll give you a chance here on another one here, because this will be a biggie. But what was the name of that company? Sunshine
Botanicals.
All right. And so here's the biggie, because we all see this because of the standard American diet. We see your lupuses, we see your Hashimoto's cases, we see all kinds of autoimmune diseases clearing up when we use these things. What's been your experience? And we did that mostly through a little bit of enzyme. I really have been enjoying the brush border enzymes from you guys. That was one thing that even in my functional medicine training, there wasn't a lot of thought given to that. And then once I started to address the brush border enzymes, then we saw a lot of that, the organic acids testing change. That was pretty neat. But yes, back to the autoimmunity.
Yeah. And also remember the ripple effect. What's the main driver of autoimmune disease? What's the main driver?
Oh yeah, well, leaky gut.
Inflammation, right? And
Inflammation.
so the enzymes, you know, from the digestive piece of the enzymes, they are definitely making sure that, because you said we've used, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's glutathione, there's superoxide dismutase, there's lipoic acid, there's all these different nutrients that are antioxidants, right? That can, vitamin E, selenium, that can help get inflammation down, right? But we should also be getting those from our food, right? We shouldn't have to supplement so much with all these different nutrients, because they should be coming from our food. We can get all of these antioxidants from our fruits and vegetables, from our clean meats and proteins, from our healthy fats, right? So, you know, when it comes to autoimmune, that's why a digestive is also always there, right? Keeping, you know, the toxicity down, inflammation down, and then the protease is hitting those rings really, really heavy, and you're not having to use a whole lot of different things. So like with autoimmune, for example, we have so many testimonies and case studies. We have our ulcerative colitis case study. We have interstitial cystitis case study. We have Hashimoto's. All of these things improve with the enzymes because we're addressing root cause, right? We're working with nutrition. Nutrition is always step one. If someone is not willing to change their nutrition, I do not work with them, because I'm not going to waste my time. I'm just going to be honest, you know. I mean, I might, but I'm just letting them know, like, you're not going to do as well. It's not my fault, but, you know, because this is going to have to be there. But, you know, with the autoimmune piece, we definitely hit nutrition first, and then digestion second, and then systemic support as well. So we're hitting the root causes of those. So even, you know, with those case studies that I mentioned, and any autoimmune, vitiligo, you and I actually worked on the vitiligo guide together. That's what we were doing. And we do see improvements, because proteolytics specifically, I feel, are the most powerful way to provide the body with inflammatory support. They are an antioxidant. They're a powerhouse antioxidant, and, you know, again, do so many other things. So that's, you know, a big thing that we've seen. The lady with the ulcerative colitis, I mean, she wasn't able to have a solid bowel movement for years. Years, like 15 years. And within a week of us putting her on Thrive in 63, she was having solid bowel movements. Her energy and fatigue was much better, obviously, right? She's actually digesting and absorbing nutrients in her food and so forth. So we have, pages upon pages. We've been in this game for almost, you know, for over 40 years, if you count all of Dickie's preclinical stuff before she started transformation. And it's the same story every time, because we're, again, addressing root cause and giving the body the simple things that it needs to achieve homeostasis and balance.
So, you know, enzymes are fabulous, and we are painting a wonderful picture, but there's always little things. What are the things that are uncomfortable that people could experience, typically for a very short time? We generally see issues for about 1 to 3 days, and then they start to clear up. What are things that patients can expect to, I shouldn't say expect, could experience?
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And that's why with Thrive in 63, the 3 phases, the first phase is our gentle, sensitive phase, because enzymes are powerful and effective, but because of that, they can create what is called a Herxheimer reaction, which is like a detox reaction that can happen, that can have like flu-like symptoms. You could feel nauseous, you could have headaches, you could have extreme fatigue, you could have diarrhea, you could have more bloat. It's rare. Like, I would say about 10% of the population experiences that, although I feel due to the increased toxicity that we continue to have year after year, we're seeing a little more sensitivity than we have before, but it doesn't matter. And usually when someone has those, I'm like, this is good. We are pushing things out, you know, and if you can stay the course, right? And it's just like with anything, when you go on keto, for example, and you completely cut carbs out, you feel terrible for a few days because the body's adapting. And it's kind of like the same thing here. You got to allow the body to get back into balance. You had mentioned, about relying on coffee, to go to the bathroom. A lot of times, some people will get constipated when they take enzymes. And that's, it can seem like, oh, the enzymes are constipating me, but they physiologically can't, because they're just catalyst, right? But what they can do is actually make sure what's happening is, before you were having malabsorption or dumping syndrome, right? And because the gallbladder was dumping too much bile, right? You were relying on a bile dump to have your daily bowel movement, right? Whereas when we give the enzymes, we're taking the burden also off the gallbladder and providing additional lipase, which helps you break down fat. So the gallbladder is no longer getting triggered to just dump bile anymore, right? Because the whole reason you were having a bowel movement to begin with was that bile dump. And you keep doing that over time, guess what you're going to get? Gallstones. You're going to have a gallbladder removal and so forth. So, again, taking those helps to offset that. But people freak out and say, well, now I'm constipated. I used to go to the bathroom, but when I dig in deeper, I find out, well, they would go to the bathroom, but it was on and off. They would have bouts of loose stool, hard stool. It wasn't a true healthy bowel movement. And it usually takes about a week or two for that to balance out. And then they become, regular again. But, I would say those are kind of the main ones. Having an allergic reaction to an enzyme is not impossible, but it is extremely rare. Enzymes are carried through the body, or at least the ones we use. We work with mycelial and plant, and they are carried through the body on a carrier protein called alpha-2 macroglobulin. I know this is kind of sciencey, but in a nutshell, it's like a little carrier protein, and it is recognized by the immune system, meaning the immune system is not alarmed when it sees these enzymes going through, so it's not eliciting an immune response, thus creating an autoimmune reaction that would cause, an allergic response, right? So it's very, very rare that happens. I think in my 12 years of working with these things, I've had one person that we had to kind of take off. But we even had, in our ulcerative colitis, we did a food sensitivity test on her, or we didn't, but she had one, and she actually flagged for aspergillus. And but we said, again, we were like, let's just see how you do, right? Because the enzymes are carried on that protein, so it shouldn't create a response. And if you have a food sensitivity, like I said, it's because you're not digesting to begin with. Anyway, we put her on the enzymes, and she did great, right? She was able to take the aspergillus, the sensitivity resolved itself, and she was able to heal. So, again, that was just another, I'm not gonna lie, because I was a little nervous, but we were like, let's just go ahead and try it. And she did great, because of that carrier protein.
So as a whole, what percentage of patients do you think get no relief? What percentage of patients get a good amount of relief? And what percentage of patients resolve, do you think? And I know this is unexpected and off the cuff.
No, it's fine. I prefer off the cuff. It's better. I've never had anyone not get relief. So we actually, as you guys know, we're so confident in how the products work. There's a 30-day money back guarantee, and we have less than a 1% return rate on that, because, specifically with the digestives, you can feel those immediately. So I've never had anyone not feel relief. Now, I have had people not feel relief with other brands I've used. And so, because I'm, before I worked for Transformation, I was just a practitioner like you guys. I had my own clinic. So I was using, full scripts and trying different products. And I would play around with other brands that had a lower price point, right? Because I'm like, well, these aren't as expensive. Let's try it. It should be just as good. It's an enzyme. Clinical outcomes weren't the same. And, that's why I really bought into Transformation so much, because a company can be three things. It can be quality, cost, or convenience. And Transformation has chosen to stay the course and be one of the last companies that are around still that will not compromise when it comes to putting excipients and additives for flow rate and things like that into the manufacturing process. And the quality is it's outstanding. The formulas are very synergistic. Dickie, to the day she died, says they were a gift, that was just given to her from the Lord, to help her create those formulas, which that might seem woo woo to people. I love it. And they're beautiful formulas. And, our other ones were formulated with her with an actual enzymologist. So, definitely the clinical efficacy is so much stronger with those. I would say about, it was who feels some relief and then completely restored.
Let's do this. What's your reorder rate?
Oh, it's pretty, I would say our retention is typically 85% or higher.
So that tells you, that's the story there.
Yes.
Most medications only have a 20 to 30, medication has a 20 to 30% retention rate. And
Yes.
you're at 85. You're on the other side of
Yes. Yes. And a lot of people ask, okay, well, how long do I have to do this? So like with Thrive in 63, that's probably a question people might be thinking is,
Amy,
how long
hold
do I
on
have
a second.
Okay.
My battery's about to die. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay. Let's see here.
Well, Amy, I'm loving the enzymes.
Good.
I'm
my so glad.
Have zero pain after 4 days. The fourth day I woke up, I had zero pain, like zero pain in my hands, my joints, until last night when I decided to eat sugar emotionally because I've had 4 deaths and a dog die. And I'm like, I knew better and I did it anyway. But
see, it should, maybe you just need more time because like I can eat that stuff. And like there was a time I couldn't.
Well, but I react to almost everything and I haven't been. So I feel absolutely awesome.
I'm so glad.
I started feeling hungry for the first time and I have no idea when I ever felt hungry. But I will be famished and full with a very little bit of food. I'm like, well, that'll just have to wait. Like
you're feeling famished or full, or you're saying before?
Oh, I will feel famished and then I'll go eat and then I'll make my salad or whatever. And I never finish it. I mean, I get.
Are you noticing if the enzymes are helping with the trizepatide now? Is it helping?
So I don't usually get any issues anymore. So I used to be sick all the time, but I left the dose at 0.5. I just think it's a little too much. I will go to sleep and I will wake up throwing up. So I think it just paralyzes my stomach, honestly. But once I get through the first 24 hours, then I'm good again. Okay. So yes, it helps lots with the tirzepatide.
Good.
So let's see. We are plugged back in. Let me see. I am charging. Good. So we were at about an 85% reorder rate, which is, as I was saying, there's a reorder for a patient to stick to a pharmaceutical. There's really only about a 30% retention rate. That's what the statistics show. You guys are at an 85% retention rate. That is amazing and speaks volumes to what is going on there. So
yeah.
Is there anything
affordable, and it's a simple way to go about it? Because I mean, it really should just be eat good food, and if you can just doing those 3 things, that's why I love it so much, and that's why it really is kind of it's where I start everybody. We do that first. Like usually, I'll start everybody with Thrive in 63, or at least that foundation, and then we do the 63 days, and then we see what's left. They can stay on it. A lot of people after the 63 days are like, this really hasn't been that bad. They might try gluten again, and that's okay. Like I make sourdough, I've got some in the kitchen right now that I need to go stretch and fold here in a minute, but we eat those things. And when it's good quality, it's okay. Like I hate to demonize all these things. Like not all dairy's bad. There's butyrate in dairy. There's lots of benefits to dairy. There's benefits to legumes. I think it just comes down to, we pull those out in Thrive in 63, not because they're terrible for you, but because they're prone to be more damaging to the digestive system if digestion is not supported. And so we're just trying to kind of take some of the stuff that's harder on the digestive system out while we're healing you. But then once you're recovered, you know, even on, so what's also cool about Thrive in 63 is the Facebook support group that we have, that I'll run, and I post recipes. There's recipes on there that are post-Thrive recipes that are incorporating healthy forms of dairy and, you know, healthy forms of grains in for people that have decided to bring those back in and that can tolerate them now, you know. But if you don't tolerate it, even after the program, you should probably stay off of it. And, you know, same with the enzymes. You don't have to follow as strenuous of a protocol after you have, you know, gone through the healing and repair process. But you do want to have at least that maintenance piece of, you know, staying with the on top of the digestive piece. I always recommend keeping the protease in there, because you're never going to not have toxicity. You're never going to not have inflammation, right? So why not, you know, keep supporting that way? And then a probiotic, because unless you're outside in the soil every day and you're eating kimchi and sauerkraut and drinking kombucha and doing all these things to really seed the gut with your prebiotics, and then eating foods that way as well, then, you know, it really is important to have that to help shape the microbiome to a healthy state versus a disease state.
Well, we actually put people that enter into our functional medicine program, they go on a very strict elimination diet. And the reason why we tell them is you have to be healthy enough to actually eat and process some of those things, because they do come with anti-nutrients. I mean, whole grains are healthy on paper, but they come with gluten, which is an anti-nutrient, which blocks absorption. And
Right.
so you have to be healthy enough to eat through it. So
yeah. Well, and if you have enzymes like Carbo G with the DPP4, it can
helps break it down.
You know, help break down that gluten more efficiently. Definitely.
Well, is there anything you would like to say in closing? Is there something that is a big ticket item that I possibly missed?
I don't think so. I think, in closing, I just really, it's the truth. I mean, no matter what you're, trying to resolve, whether you're in, seeing your clinic for, weight management, for hormone management, for autoimmune management, it all goes back to the same place. The road leads back to digestion every single time. And so it just makes sense to start there. And I can tell you, with Thrive in 63, that has been probably the most effective tool in my practice, just as a clinician, because it is addressing the soil and the trunk of the tree, right? So that those different branches can get the nutrients they need to help you balance, and you're not having to figure out all these different things. And it's like, as Jessica, I think, can attest to, it's a very easy plan to follow, and not as restrictive, because you can have the best protocol out there. You can have the best diet program out there. If people can't be compliant with it because it's too hard or too complicated or too pricey, it's not a good program, right? I don't care what it looks like on paper with clinical outcomes. It's got to be doable. And I feel Thrive in 63 is the best solution for that. So
doable and sustainable. So in the link below, you will see a link to the Thrive in 63 program. Upon checkout, you have to enter into the coupon code Dr. Miller. I'll have all that information below. And then you guys can actually start your own health journey by straightening out your gut and getting on better nutrition. And in our full functional medicine, look at the microbiome, organic acids, hormones, and everything else. If you start this program and do this, it makes clearing up those other things that you have damage in, it makes that so much easier, so much more cost effective. And that's if you even need us.
I was going to say, you may not even need us.
And that's I mean, there's a lot of times we go through the elimination phase with people and they feel great. And then they just want to start to go through and put little things back in, and they hit us up once in a while. But regardless of it, I would say that everybody needs to do this. If not for yourself, your family, because right now the environment that our children are growing up in, it is not conducive to health. And if you don't have health, or you don't know what health is, you have to start somewhere, and this is a very good place to put your foot down and start that journey.
Absolutely.
With that being said, thank you for your time, Amy.
Thank you guys for having me. It was great seeing and talking to you guys.
All right. Well, we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Do I just leave? Are we good?
Yep, you're good.